This is Top Accolade Global News Update. I am Soy Bifa Jakarich. The pilots of the cargo freighter that knocked down a highway bridge into Baltimore Harbor had radioed for tugboat help and reported a power loss minutes earlier. Federal safety officials said, citing audio from the ship's black box data recorder. The head of the National Transportation Safety Board also said that Francis Scott Key Bridge, a traffic artery over the harbor built in 1976, lacked structural engineering redundancies common to newer spans, making it more vulnerable to a catastrophic collapse. New insight into the fatal disaster emerged the day that the massive Singapore-flagged container ship Dali sailing out of Baltimore Harbor bound for Sri Lanka reported losing power and the ability to maneuver before plowing into a support pylon of the bridge. The impact brought most of the bridge tumbling into the mouth of the Patapsco River almost immediately, blocking shipping lanes and forcing the indefinite closure of the port of Baltimore, one of the busiest on the U.S. eastern seaboard. The two men whose bodies were recovered on Wednesday were identified as Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes, 35 of Baltimore, a native of Mexico, and Dolian Ronald Castillo Cabrera, 26 of nearby Dunkirk, originally from Guatemala. Four more workers who were part of a crew filing potholes of the bridge road surface remain missing and presumed dead. The six also included migrants from Honduras and El Salvador. Officials said rescuers pulled two workers from the water alive on Tuesday and one was hospitalized. The economic fallout could be staggering. The port handles more automobile and farm equipment freight than any other in the country, as well as container freight and bulk goods ranging from sugar to coal. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg said that 8,000 jobs are directly associated with port operations, which generates $2 million a day in wages. More than a fifth of global oil refinery capacity is at risk of closure, energy consultancy Wood Mackenzie found in analysis published. As gasoline margins weaken and the pressure to reduce carbon emissions mounts, of 465 refining assets analyzed, the consultancy ranked about 21% of 2023 global refinery capacity at some risks of closure. Europe and China house the greatest number of high-risk sites, putting about 3.9 million barrels per day. PBD of refinery capacity in jeopardy, Woodmac found based on its estimate of net cash margins, cost of carbon emissions, ownership, environmental investments, and strategic value of refineries. There are 11 European sites that account for 45% of all high-risk plants, the report found. About 30 European refineries have already shut down since 2009. Data from industry body Concaway shows, with nearly 90 still in operation. This spate of closures have been brought on by competition from newer and more complex plants in the Middle East and Asia, as well as impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Gasoline margins are expected to weaken by the end of this decade as demand declines and sanctions of Russia case ease, while expected carbon taxes should also start to bite. The Woodmac analysis showed operating costs could go up so much that closure may be the only option, said Woodmac senior oils and chemicals analyst Emma Fox. Meanwhile, Nigeria's huge Dangote oil refinery could bring to an end decades-long gasoline trade from Europe to Africa worth $17 billion a year, heaping pressures on European refineries already at risk of closure from heightening competition. The Dangote refinery, the capacity of up to 650,000 PBD, began production in January but was not included in Woodmac's analysis. Britain's economy entered a shallow recession last year. Official figures confirmed on Thursday, leaving Prime Minister Rishi Sunak with a challenge to reassure voters that the economy is safe with him before an election expected later this year. Gross domestic profit shrank by 0.1% in the third quarter and by 0.3% in the fourth, unchanged from preliminary estimates. The Office for National Statistics (ONS) said on Thursday the figures will be disappointing for Sunak, who has been accused by the opposition Labour Party, far ahead in opinion polls of overseeing Rishi's recession. Britain's economy has shown the signs of starting 2024 on a stronger footing, with monthly GDP growth of 0.2% in January, and unofficial surveys suggesting growth continued in February and March. Tax cut announced by Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt and expectations of interest rate cuts are likely to help the economy in 2024. However, Britain remains one of the slowest countries to recover from the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. At the end of last year, its economy was just 1% bigger than in late 2019, with only Germany faring worse among group of 7 nations. The economy grew just 0.1% in all of 2023, its weakest performance since 2009, excluding the peak pandemic year of 2020. GDP per person, which has not grown since early 2022, fell by 0.6% in the fourth quarter and 0.7% across 2023. Sterling was later changed against the dollar and euro after the data release. More than 4,600 asylum seekers have arrived in Britain on small boats so far in 2024, a record total for the first 3 months of the year, and given Prime Minister Rishi Sunak a fresh political headache. Provisional data from the Home Office or Interior Ministry showed on Wednesday that 4,644 people had been detected arriving across the channel on small boats such as inflatable dinghies up to March 26 this year. That compares with 3,770 for the same period last year and 4,162 for 2022, the previous record high. Sunak is hoping his flagship scheme to deport those arriving in Britain without permission to Rwanda will deter people from making the dangerous cross-channel crossing. Legislation which aims to get that plan up and running after a series of legal setbacks is due back in Parliament next month. The unacceptable number of people who continue to cross the channel demonstrates exactly why we must get flights to Rwanda off the ground as soon as possible, a Home Office spokesperson said last week. We continue to work closely with French police, who are facing increasing violence and disruption on their beaches as they work tirelessly to prevent these dangerous, illegal and unnecessary journeys. Overall, annual numbers fell 36% last year from 2022 record total, which led to Sunak claiming the government was beginning to have success in stopping the boats. One of his key priorities ahead of an election expected later, but the latest increase will add to pressure on Sunak, whose conservatives are well behind the opposition Labour Party in opinion polls, with immigration a major concern for some voters. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, Rishi Sunak keeps on telling the British people that small boat arrivals are coming down and his promise to stop the boats remains on track, said Stephen Kinnock, Labour's immigration spokesperson. Record immigrants crossing to UK pile pressure on Sunak as immigration challenges escalates. Russia has no design on any NATO country and will not attack Poland, the Baltic states or the Czech Republic, but if the West supplies F-16 fighters to Ukraine, then they will be shot down by Russian forces, President Vladimir Putin said late on Wednesday. Russia's invasion on Ukraine in February 2022 has triggered the deepest crisis in Russia's relations with the West since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Speaking to Russian Air Force pilots, Putin said the US-led military alliance had expanded eastward towards Russia since the 1991 fall of the Soviet Union, but the Moscow had no plans to attack NATO states. The Kremlin, which accuses the US of fighting against Russia by supporting Ukraine with money, weapons and intelligence, says relations with Washington have probably never been worse. Asked about F-16 fighters, which the West has promised to send to Ukraine, Putin said such aircraft would not change the situation in Ukraine. If they supply F-16s and they are talking about this and are apparently training pilots, this will not change the situation on the battlefield, Putin said. Putin's remarks followed comments earlier in the day by Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba that the aircraft should arrive in Ukraine in the coming months. Ukraine, now more than 2 years into a full-fledged war against Russia, has sought F-16s for many months. Belgium, Denmark, Norway Norway, and Netherlands among countries which have pledged to donate F-16s. A coalition of countries has promised to help train Ukraine pilots in their use. That is the size of top accolade global news updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy Thursday.